Jelena Ostapenko's insult to Taylor Townsend wasn't just bad sportsmanship. Naomi Osaka called it one of the worst things you could say to a black tennis player. This wasn't the simple post-match drama everyone thought they saw. The expectation is that Ostapenko was just a sore loser who threw a tantrum over a net cord. But the reality is a toxic mix of unwritten rules, a failed apology, and a deeply loaded insult that had roots far beyond the tennis court. The incident didn't even end in New York, following the players all the way to China weeks later. Most people just saw the viral clip of the tense handshake at the US Open on August 27, 2025. They heard Ostapenko was mad about a net cord, but they missed the real story. We reviewed the press conferences, analyzed the social media receipts, and broken down the timeline. The common belief is that this was a heat-of-the-moment spat that blew over. The superior reality is that this incident exposed the exact racial and cultural fault lines running just beneath the surface of the WTA Tour. So what did Ostapenko actually say that caused such a firestorm? Why did she say it, and what obscure rules was she even talking about? And how did this escalate into a major international incident involving Naomi Osaka and a bizarre separate controversy in China? We have the receipts, from the on-court mics to the late-night Instagram posts, and we're laying them all out. The fight everyone saw started the second the match ended, but the tension had been building. The match itself, a second-round encounter at the 2025 US Open, was a one-sided affair. Taylor Townsend, playing aggressive, all-court tennis, dominated the former French Open champion 7-5, 6-1. As the final point was won, Townsend celebrated, and the two met at the net on Louis Armstrong Stadium. This is where the standard narrative stops and the real one begins. Instead of the quick, professional, drive-by handshake, Ostapenko stopped Townsend, pointed a finger, and began a heated argument right at the net. The world's media and fans immediately tried to piece together what was said. Thanks to the on-court microphones and, crucially, Townsend's own post-match press conference, we have the receipts. According to Townsend's statement on August 27, 2025, Ostapenko looked her in the eye and told her she had no class and no education. As the argument continued and the chair umpire tried to separate them, Ostapenko was also heard making what sounded like a threat, reportedly saying, "See what happens when we get outside the US." Townsend, to her immense credit, stayed remarkably calm in the moment. She was seen on video simply saying, "Take the L," before walking away. In her press conference just hours later, she was visibly upset but composed. She confirmed the language Ostapenko used. She said, "I had no class, no education. It's tennis. I'm not going to let her see me sweat. I'm not going to let her dim my light." But the damage was done. The phrases "no class" and "no education" were out, and they immediately set off alarm bells for players and journalists who understood the historical weight of those specific words when directed at a black athlete. This wasn't just a personal insult, it was a loaded, coded attack. But the reason this story exploded from a simple spat into a global incident wasn't just the words, it was who heard them and what they represented. This is where the story shifts from simple drama to something much more serious. The common fan might hear "no education" and think Ostapenko was just lashing out, calling Townsend stupid in a generic way. But many players, especially players of color, heard something far more sinister. On August 29, 2025, 2 days after the match, Naomi Osaka, who wasn't even playing in the tournament, provided the crucial context that many fans and some media members were missing. In a powerful statement released to the press and shared on her social media, Naomi Osaka, a four-time Grand Slam champion and a globally recognized voice for social justice, did not hold back. She stated that Ostapenko's comment was, quote, "one of the worst things you could say to a black tennis player in a majority white sport." This single quote was the receipt that changed everything. Osaka and other critics, including prominent tennis journalists, immediately pointed to the painful history. The stereotype of being uneducated or unintelligent has been used for centuries as a tool to demean, dismiss, and dehumanize Black individuals, particularly in arenas like professional tennis, where they are and have historically been a visible minority. It's a racist trope, plain and simple, designed to imply that Black athletes belong physically, but not intellectually. This context, provided by Osaka, reframed the entire event. It forced everyone to look back at Taylor Townsend's own press conference from 2 days earlier. What she said then suddenly made perfect, painful sense. In that same August 27th presser, Townsend acknowledged this specific history. While she admirably declined to label Ostapenko's intent, she explained the impact. She said that has been a stigma in our community of being not educated when it's the furthest thing from the truth. This is the reality check. Ostapenko, whether she intended it or not, didn't just insult her opponent's personality. She deployed a recognized racist stereotype. This context, amplified by Osaka, is why the story exploded and why the WTA was forced to scramble. The story should have ended there, with Ostapenko facing a PR crisis and Townsend being rightfully praised for her grace. But in a bizarre twist, the script completely flipped just 3 weeks later. The controversy followed Taylor Townsend all the way to China, and this time, she was at the center of a cultural storm. In mid-September 2025, Townsend was in Shenzhen, China, preparing to represent Team USA in the Billie Jean King Cup. Like many athletes, she documented her trip on social media. This is where the trouble started. Townsend posted videos to her Instagram story from a tournament buffet, expressing shock and disgust at some of the local dishes being served. Receipts from her story, which were quickly screen recorded, showed her filming items like bullfrog and soft-shelled turtle. In the videos, she was heard saying the food was crazy and wild, and she made faces expressing her distaste. The reaction in China was immediate and harsh. The Chinese social media platform Weibo exploded. A hashtag, which translates to American tennis player publicly insults Chinese food, reportedly rocketed to over 50 million views. Townsend was widely accused of being culturally insensitive, disrespectful, and ignorant, the very things she had been a victim of just weeks earlier. The irony was thick and unavoidable. By September 17, 2025, the backlash was so intense that Townsend posted a full 2-minute video apology. In it, she said she was sincerely sorry for her comments, that she never intended to disrespect the culture, and that she would be better. It was a shocking turn of events. It showed how quickly a player can go from being the victim of a cultural spat to the perpetrator of one. And for Ostapenko's supporters, it was seen as a gotcha moment. Though most observers pointed out that one person's mistake doesn't excuse another's. So with all this international drama, what was the tiny spark that lit the entire forest fire? What could Townsend have possibly done on court to provoke such a loaded personal attack? It came down to two of tennis's most ridiculous, unwritten rules. In her initial social media post following the match, the ones before her official apology, Ostapenko laid out her case. She was trying to prove that Townsend was the one who actually had no class. Receipt number 1, the net cord. In her Instagram story, Ostapenko was furious that Townsend did not apologize for a lucky net cord during a very deciding moment in the first set. For those who don't watch tennis, this is a long-standing, informal tradition. If you hit a shot that clips the top of the net and trickles over for a winner, you're supposed to give a little apologetic hand wave. It's a way of saying, I got lucky, I didn't mean to win the point like that. Townsend, in the heat of a Grand Slam match, did not apologize. For Ostapenko, this was a massive, personal sign of disrespect. But receipt number 2 was even pettier. Ostapenko also claimed Townsend broke protocol before the match even started. According to Ostapenko's angry social media posts, all players are supposed to start warm-up on the baseline. She accused Townsend of coming out and immediately starting her 5-minute warm-up at the net, practicing volleys first. She called this very disrespectful and against the rules. Of course, this is not a real rule. It's not in the ITF or WTA rulebook. At best, it's a minor piece of etiquette that most players don't even think about. Townsend later confirmed she has warmed up at the net for years, and it's never been an issue. For Ostapenko, however, these two minor etiquette breaches were her proof. They were her justification for claiming Townsend lacked a tennis education, which she would later try to use as an excuse. As the backlash from Naomi Osaka's comments and the entire tennis world reached a boiling point, Ostapenko was forced to respond, but her apology only added fuel to the fire. After first posting a defiant all-caps denial on August 27th, where she wrote, "I was never racist in my life," she returned to Instagram on Saturday, August 30th, 2025, with a more formal, prepared statement. This was her chance to make things right. She failed. In the statement, she tried to explain away her comments by blaming language. She wrote, "English is not my native language, so when I said education, I was speaking only about what I believe as tennis etiquette." Critics and fans immediately pounced on this. The words education and etiquette are not synonyms in any language, and no class is a direct, universally understood insult. It was seen as a weak, cowardly excuse. But the most glaring receipt was what was missing. She never apologized to Taylor Townsend. Her statement was a general apology to many people beyond the tennis court who may have been offended by the misinterpretation. It was a classic non-apology, failing to take accountability or acknowledge the racial and historical weight of her words. The WTA, for its part, issued a standard statement about sportsmanship but announced no specific fine or suspension for the language, a move that was also heavily criticized. So, the next time you see a tense handshake, remember the Ostapenko-Townsend incident. The expectation was a simple story of a sore loser. The reality was a complex storm of unwritten rules, a coded insult with deep racial history, a powerful clarification from another superstar, and a bizarre, ironic follow-up controversy in another country. It proved that the most explosive drama in tennis often happens after the final point is played, and the words used at the net can matter more than any shot in the match. The real story is never just about the score, and the education everyone received was about the painful realities just below the surface of the tour. If you want to understand the other hidden rules, rivalries, and pressures that define the professional tour, you need to know the full context. We break down the systems and stories that control the game in our essential playlist, The Tennis Playbook. Click here to watch it next.